You've seen it around the channel. You've seen it in the hands of Tosin Abasi himself. What is it? That's right, multi-scale frets. Does it work? Is it worth it? Let's discuss. So the multi-scale I'm holding in my hand, it's the Abasi Master Series 8 Larada. I did a review on this some time ago. It's on the channel, go ahead check it out if you like. Alright, so let's start with some pros. Obviously it has the longer scale length on the bass side, shorter scale length on the treble side. So this helps with lower tuning, modern metal, and extended range instruments, like this one, this 8-string here. It's also helpful for other styles too. If you play jazz, utilizing this lower string here. If you play any other style, rock, bluegrass, who knows, maybe there's an 8-string bluegrass player out there. Could be you. The benefit of this is because there's more tension on the lower string, you don't have to use as thick of a string to get the same result. Which is great because with some low tunings you would need basically bridge cables or bass strings to accomplish. It's pretty helpful if you have a heavier picking hand too, a harder picking technique. The added tension will just keep it in tune a bit more, although you will get pitch drift if you do hit the strings hard. That's just physics. Some people too might find the look of these guitars, the multi-scale guitars, they might think they're cool, they might think they're exotic, it might have a wow factor that you like, you know, just a little thing. Personally, I care more about the functionality of the instrument. Of course, the looks kind of do help too. And of course, we've been talking about the bass side of the neck, but on the treble side of the neck, it's shorter. This one has that 25.5-inch scale length on the treble side. So that means bends are easier, they're more viable. It is kind of annoying bending on a longer scale length instrument. This guitar, for example, has a 26.5-inch scale length, and you can feel the difference when bending. You have to bend it a bit more. Of course, too, since you're using thinner strings than you would with a shorter scale length guitar, it is nice that the strings, the sets, would be more readily available. Although there are some options, more options now, where you can get custom string gauges. It's always nice to be able to walk into Guitar Center or something and pick up the only 8-string set they have, one of two maybe. Alright, so what are the cons here? What's the deal? How come every guitar doesn't have a multi-scale? Well, first of all, you can use a pitch shifter to get lower or higher tuning. If you need just a lower tuning for one part of a song or one song, a few songs, you can just pitch shift it down and it works just fine. The audience usually isn't going to notice. Only the guitar players out there maybe. But we're playing the music for the fans, right? Also, while the angled frets, the fan, might look cool to most people, to some people, it does add difficulty to playing. When you're looking down the guitar neck, usually you're used to the uniform scale length, but with these angles, it can actually be pretty difficult to see what you're doing. When you're looking down at the upper frets, for example, because on this multi-scale especially, because the frets are angling away from you, it's really hard to see what you're playing. And of course we practice our instrument, we already know what we're going to be playing ahead of time before we perform it, but we do get lost every now and then. And when you have those moments where you're like, uh-oh, where am I? And you look down and you can't quite see where you are and you're hitting the wrong frets, that's when the audience does notice. And that's when you start to get stressed out, you tense up, playing gets worse. It's no bueno. And it leads to mistakes at the lower frets too. When you're playing rhythms down at the lower end, it does angle away from you, so you do have to compensate for that. Also, let's talk about the bridge angle. Because it's a multi-scale, the bridge is actually angling away from you. So that means you have to adjust your muting technique, your palm muting technique, your picking technique if you want to target the same area of the string. So that adds some difficulty. You kind of have to relearn to play it. Kind of feels like a different instrument. And of course, on the multi-scale guitars where the pickups follow the fan, they follow the multi-scale. Not every multi-scale guitar has this, but on the ones that do, you might end up picking right on the pickup where normally you wouldn't be. So, would I recommend a multi-scale guitar? You know, this one, it's an amazing instrument. I'm glad I have it. It's fun to use every now and then. It is pretty useful. I wouldn't recommend a multi-scale though, especially with the Evertune. If you want like an 8-string, for example, you can get an 8-string Evertune. Of course, if you don't like Evertunes, if that's not your jam, that's not a solution. You might just have to go with a uniform scale length instead. You know, there's baritones out there that are like 29 inches, 30 inches, 27.5 inches, whatever, it's all out there. I would strongly recommend, if you're considering a multi-scale, that you go out and try one. It doesn't have to be the one that you're going to end up buying, but if you can find any multi-scale, just to get a feel for it, to see if it's your thing, to see if it's a challenge you would want to tackle, I'd recommend that, because it can be pretty frustrating when you're trying to play something you know you can play, and you can play it just fine on your other guitars, but you're trying to play it on the multi-scale and it's just not working out. That can be tough. It'll take more mind power to wrap your head around where your fingers are, where your hands are. It will take more practice to be able to play the things you can normally play, to be able to figure out where you are on the neck. So I would not buy another multi-scale. They're pretty cool. If you like them, that's great. But moving forward, I think I'm just going to be sticking to uniform scale lengths. That's just my personal thing. So what do you think? Did this answer your questions on multi-scale instruments? Let me know in the comments below. Of course, do all the YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe, sail across the ocean and tell everyone in other countries about this video. And as always, peace.